If you've been following along with this video series, you know that this video is going to be all about the tools and techniques that I use to film my videos. And so that's what we're talking about today. It's the tools, the editing software, the cameras that I use, the lighting that I use, and all of the different things to help move you into using video in your MSP. My name is Adam Hammond. Welcome to Ramblings of a Geek. I've been in the MSP space for the better part of a couple decades. And as I mentioned before, I like doing this video stuff. I'm not the best at it, but I'm not the worst at it either. And if you can learn anything from me and leverage it to drive more sales and more clarity for communication with your MSP, I think it's a win. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, when it comes to what camera should I use, right? That's a common question is, do I need to go buy an expensive camera? Now, the answer to that question is no, you don't, right? The camera that you carry with you every single day, and many times every single minute of every single day, is a solid camera. In fact, I've recorded a lot of videos on my cell phone camera and will continue to do so depending on the situations. So yeah, you can use your phone, right? Your phone can record in 4K video these days, and you don't even necessarily even need 4K. Now, I might recommend it if your phone can do it, or any video thing you can do it, just because having those extra pixels is a little bit nicer. But the reality is that your phone can do a fine job. Now, what if you want to upgrade and do something different, or like you want to spend some money on some gear? You have a couple different options that I have used and will continue to use as well. The first option is to use a full-on digital camera, right? A full, this is an expensive camera, especially when you add the lens to it. You can spend almost an unlimited amount of money on one of these things. I love this camera. It's just a little bit bulky. You have to bring a different bag with. It actually requires a little bit more knowledge of how to use the equipment, and sometimes I don't really want to deal with that. That's actually where the phone can really come in handy, because the phone will make up for a lot of issues. But if you want to spend some money, there's some money to be spent, right? I think the camera body on this was a few $100. The lens is a few $100, and there you go. You obviously would want a tripod and those kinds of things as well. And so really the thing is that if you want to spend some money on a camera, go out there and do it. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to spend money on a camera like this, you need to learn how to use this camera, right? And there are plenty of videos out there for how to do that. It really just becomes down to how much do you want to learn about the thing, and how much you want to learn about this potentially new hobby of yours, especially if you're going to spend, $500 to $1,000 on the camera. The other option is to use what I'm actually using right now to record this video. I use this camera called the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. It's a really slick little camera. It's little. It can do all kinds of cool things. Obviously, video being its primary focus. The best part about this for me is it's very small and easy to take with. Now, I usually use it on a tripod, but you can absolutely use it to walk with. You can use it to do time lapses and some other really cool stuff as well. So it's a solid option. And again, it's pretty small and it can stay out of the way. The reality for me is I actually prefer things that kind of be a little bit less obvious, especially since I do almost all of my filming outside. Now, if you don't want to do your filming outside, you're going to do it inside, you can get an expensive digital camera and you can get some lighting set up and you can like make your own little studio. Cool. If that's the thing you want to do, that's awesome. Now, obviously, I like to spend my time outside for these videos, so my setup is usually a little bit more compact, a little bit easier to move around, which is again why the cell phone is great, because you can take your cell phone, throw it in your pocket, bring a camera, tripod, and a microphone, and you're good to go. So that's a couple things to think about when it comes to like, what are you going to do, right? So part of the conversation is, where are you going to shoot? What kind of videos are you going to shoot? And are you going to be moving around? Because if you're going to move around, you want to kind of prioritize, the ability to kind of move that setup around. Now, if you're going to shoot in your office or something like that, and you have a thing that can be mostly permanently set up, go wild and set up things the way that you want it to be set up. So that's the camera side of the world, because camera is a big part of it, but it's really only part of the equation. In my mind, the more important piece is the audio, right? So when you think about audio, that for me is actually a bigger part of the equation than the video. If you watched all of my videos, there's 3 or 4 of them for sure that I'm not a huge fan of the framing of the video, but the content was pretty good. The backdrop was pretty good. I was probably in a space where I couldn't do that again, or maybe I was talking to somebody, and the camera angle wasn't perfect because I do all of this stuff alone. So understand that you can make some mistakes on the camera side of the world, because audio is really more important, especially when you're talking about stuff, right? And my videos are talking head videos. I'm going to suspect that many of your videos for your clients are going to be similar. So make sure you get the audio figured out and get it figured out well. Now, there's a few different options as it relates to audio. Again, you can spend an unlimited amount of money on audio. It's a little bit more narrowed down than video, but really there's a couple really solid options. Now, with the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, they actually have DJI mics that can go along with it. This happens to be one of my 2 different mics that I happen to use. The mic I'm wearing is actually attached into my shirt underneath my jacket here, just to kind of keep it out of the way. But this mic works really well, and there's a bunch of different options that work similarly as well. So the key there is making sure that you understand that the mic package works with whatever you're going to shoot with, right? So if you're going to use a cell phone for the most part, you want to make sure that the mic package attaches to your cell phone well, and then maybe if you're going to use a camera, make sure that it can attach to the camera stuff as well. Because the other thing I've used in the past and will continue to use in the future is something like this. Now, this happens to be the Anchor Work something model number, whatever, but the Anchor Work thing, basically what it is it's got a couple different mics and a transmitter. This transmitter attaches to my phone, attaches to my camera, attaches to whatever, and these are the mics, right? And I attach the mic to to a lapel of someone's shirt, or just kind of have it kind of wherever. And the reality is those things work really well. There's a whole bunch of different versions of it. DJI makes their own piece. Anchor obviously makes one. There's a number of other options, right? Rode makes one. Like there's a whole bunch of them. They cost, I don't know, somewhere between $100 and $200 for the most part. You can spend more than that if you want to, but you can also spend less. And the reality is that the difference between the high end and the lower end, there is a difference, but I don't know that it's enough to matter really. Spend what you think you should spend, but make sure you have good enough audio to get your message across. If you're getting some value out of this video, please do me a favor, hit the like button and drop a comment about how you're using video in your MSP today and how it's working for you. So now the third part of the equation is lighting. Now I shoot outside in all 4 seasons and pretty much wherever I happen to be. Now, every once in a while, I'll be stuck inside because the weather is too bad for me to do something like this on the day I want to go film. But for the most part, I try to get outside to film. So I have to deal with all the outside stuff. So the way it sits today is the sun's actually up and behind me, which is not ideal in any which way, shape, or form. The DJI Osmo Pocket 3 or a cell phone will automatically try to make that a little bit better, where your digital camera, you have to play with that a little bit more. In fact, depending on what's going on, you might actually have a big problem doing that. So understand that if you're going to shoot outside like me, you might lose some really cool backdrops because of just the way the lighting works out. The key with all things lighting is to make sure that whatever the subject of the video is, whether it's you plus an interview, or maybe you're shooting video of a device or something like that, make sure the lighting enhances that subject as much as you possibly can. Now, when you have a situation where the lighting isn't perfect, then you could buy or bring some additional lights. And you could easily spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on lights as well. I don't know that I would do that. What I would do is if you're gonna shoot inside, get a spot set up and light it such that it doesn't look like you're have a spotlight in your face, right? So you could go spend another $50 or $100 on a little LED light panel and on what they would call a softbox to kind of go around it to make that light a little bit more diffuse. That would be a pretty good option. If you have track lighting in your home, in your office, or wherever you want to shoot some video, maybe just put a little bit of a diffuser on that just to soften that light up a little bit. It's probably good enough at least to get started. This is again one of those things where I don't know that you go spend a whole bunch of money on stuff, right? So if you think about all of this, you could spend hundreds of dollars on the camera, you could spend hundreds of dollars on audio, and spend hundreds of dollars on lighting for a thing that maybe you don't like very much. Then all of a sudden you've wasted all this money. So I would probably spend minimal dollars to start with, figure out if you like it and if it's useful for you or not. And if it is, then maybe upgrade your lighting at a later date. But so let's say you're in a home or an office and you want to use the existing lights. The first thing is I would turn off the up above lights, right? That top down lighting doesn't look good on most people. It also is too direct for the most part. So then you find a couple lamps or some other options. You could even, like I said, aim track lighting, or find enough way to get more light on half of your face than the other. Give a little bit of a shadow on either side of your face, because I think that makes sense. Use a window if you can, if the window's off to your side. The window behind you wouldn't work very well, but the window off to the side or maybe in front of you wouldn't be terrible options either. So just kind of play with it a little bit and get used to kind of framing things out that way. And once you find something that works, especially if you're going to shoot inside, keep working and leveling that up, right? So for example, in my home office, I have a couple different areas where I would probably film, but I'm actively working to give myself a spot or two where if I need to shoot inside because the weather might be real bad, especially as we head towards winter, if I can't go outside and shoot and it's my shooting day, I want to have a place where I could go inside without like having to like reconfigure my home office. I'm going to work on that a little bit over the course of the next few weeks as we get towards winter. But if you're going to set up your own space inside, just have a space that works for you, and then get used to how things are set up, so that way you're not having to like spend an hour setting things up every single time. Because I will tell you that from my experience going out in filming out in the real world, just give you today as an example. Today I got up, I drove about a half hour, 40 minutes to get to where I am. I parked, I got situated, and then I went to go walk to find a space because I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to shoot. So I walked for probably about a mile, which is, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. I set up, did all the things. I'm now shooting. I'm going to walk all the way back to my car and drive all the way home. Now, it's a beautiful day. I love being outside. I don't have anything else to do right now, so this is fun for me. But the reality is, if you want to shoot video and you want to spend as minimal time as possible, set yourself up so that way you can just sort of sit down and record without having to like go through a bunch of machinations. Otherwise, this will quickly fall to the bottom of your priority list. As it relates to all this hardware and camera and lighting, all the different things, I'll drop a bunch of links in the description of this video of the stuff that I use and maybe the stuff that I would buy brand new if I was starting this over again, to give you a potential place to start. In addition to all this video stuff that I do a monthly newsletter, or at least about once a month. I'm gonna drop the link on the screen and in the description of this video. Please follow my newsletter for more content like this. You've shot a video, awesome. Now it's time to edit. Let's talk for a minute about some editing software and some tips that you could use to make your life a little bit easier when it comes to editing your videos. The first thing is, editing software can be very expensive again, and it can also be very inexpensive. And so there's a couple different things. Now, if you use a phone to shoot your videos and you're not going to do lots of like fancy edits and cuts and those kinds of things, you could use something like iMovie to edit your video. And iMovie on the Apple side of the world is super basic. It doesn't give you a lot of options really, but it's pretty good. Now, if you're going to use a computer, whether it's a Mac or a PC, there's a software out there called DaVinci Resolve. And DaVinci Resolve has a free version, and it's excellent. And in fact, there are tons and tons and tons of how-to videos out there on YouTube as it relates to all things DaVinci Resolve. Now, I happen to be a Mac guy because that's just who I am. And so I actually use Final Cut Pro as a pretty awesome software as well. For me, the benefit for that was it was a one-time purchase, and DaVinci actually is a one-time purchase as well. It's not some subscription thing, which for me is kind of nice. And so Final Cut's another option, and then the Adobe products, the Adobe Premiere side of the world is also very good. Now, the reality is that don't go crazy with spending a bunch of money on this again. If you want to do this to see if this works for you, one, I would probably use the free software that you can. So if you've got iMovie or if you want to grab DaVinci Resolve is certainly more complicated than iMovie. So just know that you're in for a little bit more learning curve there. But whatever software you use it, get okay at it, and then figure out if editing is the right thing for you to do from a use of your own time perspective. Because like I said before, I'm not sure editing videos is the best use of time for MSP business owners. Either somebody on your team can do that, or you could outsource that to somebody else and let them kind of handle it, especially if you have any kind of marketing budget. Because I think that doing this video stuff and leveraging it in all the ways I've been talking about, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on your website, whether it's in the different social media platforms, like wherever you put it, or ideally maybe a couple different places, is a great use of the marketing funds, especially if you can outsource some of the other pieces. 2 quick tips for editing, right? The first thing is if you are doing multiple takes like I do, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll work my way through things, I'll talk about stuff for a while, whatever that looks like, and I'll get done with a take. Now, one of the things that the biggest pieces I ever heard from an editing perspective was to make a couple claps. Now, I'm not really a big fan of clapping. It's usually a little bit too noisy, so I snap right in front of my microphone a couple times, and that way I can see those little bumps when I go to edit, and I can find those 2 bumps, and I say, okay, everything right in front of that was good, and I might just delete everything elsewhere, right? So this basically says this is the right take to use. I also leave myself a little voice notes as well, right? So before I recorded this section, I realized I had forgotten it in an earlier section, so I actually left myself a voice note so I can just listen to it, and then look for the snaps and kind of work my way through there. So that's the first thing is I would leave the camera rolling, record notes in the thing, use your snaps to indicate good takes, and that will save you some time in the editing process. Now, the other piece with editing is people ask, how long should my video be, and those kinds of things, right? And the reality is that it should not be 1 second longer than it needs to be, and it should be 1 second shorter than it needs to be. And the reality is that if you have a thing to say, a story to tell, or whatever that looks like, make sure that you say it and don't repeat it over and over and over again. But also make sure you explain it well enough. So what I might do is record too much and then be willing to cut things down in the editing room, because the reality is that you don't need to explain things 10 or 15 times, right? If you read a business book, 20% of the volume of the book, whatever that is like the content, if even that much, and the other 80% is like telling that over and over again from different angles and all those different pieces. Don't do that in your videos. You will lose viewers super, super fast. Keep the video condensed as possible and don't over explain stuff. I will also throw a couple links in the description of this video for some channels and some places to get some editing tips and tricks as it relates to all things iMovie, DaVinci Resolve, and Final Cut, because I think it's not a bad way of kind of spending a little bit of time to kind of dig into that a little bit as well. The last part of this equation isn't hardware, isn't software, isn't any of that stuff. The last piece of this equation is telling a story. If you can tell a story through your video, you're much more likely to get people to listen and pay attention to what you have to say. Now, part of it can be literally telling a story, and we'll get to that in a minute, but the other part is you want to be able to kind of work your way through your video in a fashion where people can follow it, right? I oftentimes have to think about how I'm going to flow my video all the way through, and like how am I going to segue between the different segments and those kind of different types of pieces. If you look at my videos so far, this video stuff, as I'm kind of working my way through a number of different things. But the reality is that telling a story and being clear about kind of the path through a thing is very important. Now, if you can tell a literal story, right? We helped a partner that does this. They were having this challenge, whatever this challenge happens to be, and we helped them by doing something over here. And like you can like step your way through that and describe how you help that partner and why people should think about using you as their MSP. That's a really good option. Now, even more powerful is if you can get your client to tell the story on your behalf, right? You can get the client to say, hey, we were working with Joe's MSP and Joe and his team helped us solve this problem by doing X, Y, and Z. So much even the better, right? So the idea is if you can tell a story to kind of drive your audience through the process of whatever the thing happens to be, the better for everyone's going to be and the more powerful your videos will be as well. So if you can tell a story, a literal story, go for it. If nothing else, make sure you can like kind of step them through the process. With this video stuff, right, we've talked about the why, we talked about how I film stuff, and now we're talking about what? The recording, the different pieces and some of those other pieces, right? This is a third of 4 videos about how to use and leverage video in your MSP. Hopefully this is driving some value for you. I really want you all to be able to use video, and please do me a favor, drop in the comments if you found some value in here and how you're using video in your MSP today. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and drop the playlist to this video section up here, and I'm gonna also drop the prospecting video up here because all of this kind of leads back to that prospecting side of the world as well. Thanks for coming on this ramble with me. Hope to see you in the next one.